Bismillah, the next portion of this chapter, Imam al-Ba'li rahimahullah discusses recruitment and spoils. He opens by saying it is required that the commander-in-chief and the army purify their intentions for Allah in their acts of obedience. And we know that the actions are according to intentions, and everyone will be compensated and rewarded according to what they intended. So the objective here is to gain the pleasure and reward of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in all acts of obedience, including in your service, serving your country, serving your people, and serving your faith in this particular capacity. So it's key, it's absolutely fundamental that the heart be in the right place, that you be doing this for a much loftier objective than something of worldly pursuits. So that is something that must be managed from the top all the way down, commander-in-chief all the way to the basic foot soldier. It says at the time of expedition, he is obligated or obliged, he meaning the commander-in-chief, to enter into a contract with the soldiers and their steeds and prohibit whoever is not suitable for war. So basically now the commander-in-chief, as he is in charge of the armed forces, he needs to enter into a contract. They need to be contracted out as dedicated soldiers in the armed forces. And this, of course, is a contract that is beneficial for the expedition, beneficial for the overall program, if you will, of the state. And then he has to weed out the good soldiers from the potentially bad soldiers to avoid any negative consequences. And so he would weed out, if you will, or prohibit discouragers, those that are discouraging the Muslims from, or discouraging the soldiers from battle in whatever way. They're unable, they're incapable. The alarmists, those that are causing an alarm by, oh, that group must have been killed, they must have been captured, they must have been some type of ill befallen news, unknown of course, but causing alarm, and that would of course detract from the morale of the soldiers. Intelligence agents, those that possess knowledge of the inner workings of the plan, if you will, or the strategy, that can report back to the enemy lines in order to uncover what the next moves of the army will be. After that, you have known hypocrites. Hypocrites, of course, those that are presenting faith outwardly, but inwardly they have some axe to grind with the Muslim community or the state. They're also to be prohibited. Insiders of civil unrest, that is an absolute necessity to remove them from such a situation. Children, of course, should not be on the battlefield, as well as women. Besides the elderly who can serve in the capacity of water bearers or nurses or caregivers or something of that nature, then it would be permitted to allow them into the ranks of the soldiers. It says it is impermissible to seek assistance from non-believers. So you're not looking for outside forces of a different faith to help support your campaigns, except if there is a dire need. In that case, obviously, as is the principle that necessity knows no law, is essentially the principle. Al-Dururat tubih al-Mahdhurat. Essentially that means that necessity knows no law. If you are just absolutely in a dire need, then you're permitted to do that which is impermissible. It says he is to prevent his army from what is impermissible and from being occupied with commerce. Obviously you want to prevent your soldiers from the haram, that which is morally impermissible, because success and victory is with God Almighty. Allah is the one that raises the status of those he wills, and he also degrades those he wills. And a person that is in the direct disobedience of Allah, it is perceived that they are more likely to be degraded and to be debased and belittled by the Almighty than a person who is living a righteous life and fulfilling their obligations, their religious duties. That type of a person is perceived to be rewarded and raised in rank. So there are these inner workings or inner dimensions that have to be considered even in such dire and difficult situations. Also, the commander-in-chief should prevent his soldiers from getting involved in business and commerce. You don't want to have them distracted from the task at hand. You know, they're marching on to the battlefield, and you know your soldiers are there trying to haggle with the locals selling their goods and services. He should prepare wages and gifts for the enduring soldiers in order to encourage them in their performance, and should seek counsel with the insightful, right? No one can do it alone, including the commander-in-chief. There should be a certain level of counsel or mushawara, taking advice from those that can provide solid information. And when you are on the battlefield and you're dealing with, battle, it says whoever kills a combatant during battle is allowed their spoils. Right? So if you are engaged in combat and you are victorious and you do kill the combatant, then you're allowed to take from them clothing, jewelry, weaponry, and the transport upon which he was fighting and whatever is on it. You can take that and it can become your personal property. His money, saddle, tent, and pack animal are considered war booty, and those items are to be divided in a very different way. So that would not become personal property, but that would be acquired into the property of the state, and then it would be distributed in a very specific manner. And that is where we conclude with this section of the chapter.